A few days ago, WB Montreal announced their newest game, Gotham Knights, where you play as four of Batman's closest allies investigating his supposed death. It looks very intriguing, and I'm definitely eager to see more about it. In light of this momentous reveal, I decided it would be a good time to go and look at some more Batman games. Not good ones, mind you. I went onto the App Store and found some really questionable rip-off games. I did this once before, and well,
Barely a few yards away, the cars demonstrate that they don't have the right physics in this game, so you can absolutely shove them around to your heart's content.
yeah. Link to that in the description if you're interested in checking it out. But who knows, maybe one of these games will change my mind about these weird bootleg development games. Spoiler alert, they don't. Starting off, we have Incredible Hero Legends, which technically I guess would be a Red Hood ripoff game instead of a Batman ripoff game, considering that they just lifted the look from Red Hood in Batman Arkham Knight, though I'm going to count it. Right after the game assures us that it is, in fact, a work of fiction, we are thrown into a title screen that, between the advertisements for Sausage Wars and the very clear attempts to sell stuff to you, are a real great start. Red Hood is actually a little bit different from his usual self. As we can see, he has insane powers. Or, at least he would have insane powers if you're willing to shell out money for them. I'm not, because this looks like it's a dumpster fire already, so I'm just sort of stuck with this lame gas attack. Please do not ask where it is coming from. Tip: use the jump button to glide in midair. As you progress, you gain new... Oh cool, it doesn't even finish the tip. Before I can even get past the first tutorial dialogue box, the camera decides it's going to veer wildly towards staring at Jason's ball sack. Now, the camera itself, I very quickly come to realize, is very slow and very unresponsive, but then again, the buttons are also very slow and very unresponsive too, so I shouldn't be surprised. Apparently, this version of the Red Hood has super speed, sort of like the Flash, and so the game makes me just immediately climb into a car. Calling these controls would be grossly inaccurate, and if you take a look at the button with the exclamation point above the pedals, it actually just lights up the brake lights and does nothing else. Very quickly the game asks me to pick up a pistol in an alleyway and to go use some random man standing at the end as target practice, and in the process of me attempting to figure out how on earth you shoot in this game, I am very quickly interrupted by an advertisement. By the time it finally goes away, there's a secondary advertisement blocking the screen, so I don't know, did I kill the man or not? Couldn't tell you. And the game teleports me back to the car. Not being a schmuck, I decide I'm gonna get out and run on foot with my super speed, where the game leads me to... the car. Fine, I'll drive to the objective. Suspiciously, it leads me back to the same alleyway, the same gun, and the same man. I maneuver closer and fiddle with the camera some so I can at least try and see what happens, and am still completely unable to figure out how to fire the gun. Clearly, murdering the man keeps triggering the exact same advertisement, and before I can do anything else, the game has started over and dropped me right back into the very freaking start. Side note, I guess that's what the App Store meant by endless hero action. It just cycles indefinitely, like you're trapped in hell. Considering that the only thing I've gotten out of this game is Chinese spyware, more likely than not, I figure it's about time we jump into something else for a change. Fortunately, for the sake of my sanity, the next entry is a little more passable. Titan Phoenix Justice Knights, while still clearly ripping off Batman with a smidge of the Arkham Knights design for good measure, is at least trying to be something decent. I mean, a lawyer would take a few extra minutes before he'd be able to smack this down as copyright infringement, and if that's not an improvement, I don't know what is. This half attempt at making something good carries over to the gameplay too. It's a classic style beat 'em up and gives you the option to jump, punch, or kick. And while that does sound quite basic, you've got to remember these bootleg games are a lot like my sex life. If you can reach competency, you're really looking at the best possible situation. The game is made up of levels where you fight a few dudes at a time, and every few levels the scenery does change out. But honestly, I think the levels themselves are a little bit too short because you don't fight very many of them before it takes a break. And honestly, I kind of suspect this is intentional because in between levels every time, it throws an ad break at you. That way you get to, I don't know, watch mecha robots building toilet paper forts. Enemies will also sometimes drop weapons, although they're kind of a mixed bag. I didn't get to use most of them because the enemies typically do not drop them until the very end of the levels, and you are not able to carry them over to the next level if you don't use them. Also, they don't really have the proper animations that they're always supposed to have. One of them, which is probably supposed to be some sort of a taser, has no electrical effect, so it looks like you're just psychically activating a seizure in the guys, which is probably inhumane. Another one is just a gun. Once you get a few levels in, there's a character who's obviously some semblance of Robin, which I do think is a very nice touch. However, around this time in the game, the enemies start carrying guns as well, which will start stun-locking you from off-screen more often than not. So even though it doesn't get any harder, it really just gets less fun to play. All in all, it's not a great game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still far too good of a game for us to end on this note. We can't have people thinking I'm some sort of optimist or something. Now that looks like some proper shit. Side note, if the next Batman movie doesn't have a poster which is just 4 bats stacked on top of each other, I am not going to go see it. Oh god. This is gonna be one of those types of game, isn't it? I can genuinely say that I hate everything I am seeing with every fiber of my body. You guys, if I went back in time and showed Christopher Nolan this game before he made Batman Begins, that movie wouldn't exist, because he would be in prison for murdering me on the spot. Nope, I'm just gonna let it keep going for a minute here. Someday, when I'm an old man, lying on my deathbed, trying desperately to think back on my life, this image is going to be the only thing that crosses my mind before I enter the void.